All right. So you've probably seen all the headlines about these Meta layoffs, right?
Yeah, tons of them.
It feels like it's been everywhere. And we're going to kind of go deeper on that today, look beyond those headlines.
Yeah.
And we have some really interesting stuff here. We've got some internal documents. And yeah, they really are. They break down the numbers by like team by role and all that. And it paints a really interesting picture, I think, of what's going on over at Meta.
Well, and it is interesting because, 3,115 employees. That's not an insignificant number. That's about 5% of their workforce.
Yeah, that's a pretty sizable chunk of Meta being let go. And when you look at, where those cuts are concentrated, it's pretty revealing. For example, Tom Allison, he's head of Facebook.
Right.
His team was hit the hardest 335 jobs cut.
Yeah.
What do you make of that?
Well, I mean, it kind of signals, I think, to competitors that, Meta is willing to loosen its grip on traditional social media, which, let's be honest, is still a huge revenue driver for them, but it could be, an opening for some of those rivals, to sort of gain some ground while Meta's focused elsewhere.
Yeah, that's a really interesting point. I hadn't really thought about it that way, that it could actually shift the landscape a little bit. But if we go back to the documents for a second, the next biggest hit was to Meta's Horizon VR team, which is led by Vishal Shah. And they saw 244 cuts. And of course, Horizon is their big virtual world platform. It's, a big part of their metaverse push. Do you think that raises any red flags about Meta's metaverse ambitions?
Not necessarily. I mean, remember Meta's CTO, Andrew Bosworth, he said publicly that 2025 is going to be a make or break year for the metaverse.
Yeah.
So these cuts could just reflect a course correction, within Reality Labs, which is their metaverse division.
Yeah.
As they're trying to meet that deadline.
Makes sense.
I mean, there's a lot of pressure to deliver, and maybe some projects or teams are just not panning out the way that they hoped.
Yeah, like they're trimming the fat to streamline their efforts and double down on the things that they see as most promising. And speaking of streamlining, the document shows significant cuts in Carmine Arabia's group, and he's the VP of devices over at Reality Labs. They saw 195 roles cut, and that was mostly in business analytics and engineering, and that was all within the device development teams.
Right.
So what do we make of that?
Well, I mean, it suggests that maybe they are scaling back or even abandoning a certain hardware projects related to the metaverse.
Wow.
So, maybe some of those AR/VR headset plans are being shelved or reevaluated.
Yeah, that's a huge insight. So it seems like it's not just about cutting costs. It's about really making choices about which technologies they think are going to win. It's like they're placing their bets.
Placing their bets.
Yeah.
And speaking of the future, there's one area where Meta is actually ramping up hiring, even while they're making these cuts.
Okay.
And that is machine learning.
Oh, that's right. Peng Han's memo. I almost forgot about that. He's the VP of engineering for monetization at Meta, and he was talking about expedited hiring for machine learning engineers, which seems to go against the grain a little bit.
It does, but it really speaks to Mark Zuckerberg's focus on attracting the top talent.
Right.
And those areas that are crucial to their long-term vision.
So is it less about just cutting costs in general and more about kind of reshaping that workforce?
I think so.
Like swapping out what Zuckerberg has called low performers with these, highly skilled individuals in areas like AI that are really important, not just for the metaverse, but also for, improving their monetization strategies.
Precisely. And this is where things get really interesting because, you look at the cuts to data centers under Rachel Peterson, and on the surface, it might seem counterintuitive.
Yeah, why would you?
Why would you cut infrastructure?
You step back on that.
When you're building something as resource intensive as the metaverse.
You'd think they need more computing power.
Right.
Not less.
Yeah, but what if they're, optimizing their data center strategy to align with the specific needs of the metaverse?
I see.
Maybe they're transitioning to more specialized infrastructure or cloud-based solutions that are a better fit.
So it's not just about cutting back on data centers, it's about making them more metaverse efficient.
Yeah.
That's fascinating.
It really is. And it makes you think about the complexities of, building for the future and how, these companies are having to adapt their infrastructure to support these grand visions that they have.
Absolutely.
And even with all of these strategic moves that we're seeing, there's still a big question mark hanging over the metaverse itself.
Right, and that's what we're going to get into next. This is just part one, folks. Stay tuned for part two, where we unpack the metaverse itself.
I mean, remember that leaked memo from Bosworth where he called 2025 a make or break year?
Oh, yeah.
for the metaverse.
It does seem like even internally there's that acknowledgement that this is a big gamble.
Huge gamble.
You know, it could either revolutionize the way we interact online, or it could become, a cautionary tale of tech overreach.
Exactly. And that makes these documents even more fascinating because it really gives us that glimpse into the decision-making
behind the scenes
of, one of the most influential tech companies in the world.
Yeah, it's like we're getting a peek behind the curtain, seeing how the sausage is made, so to speak.
Exactly.
But we can't forget, these these numbers on a spreadsheet.
Yeah.
They represent real people's livelihoods.
Absolutely. I mean, thousands of employees are being impacted by these layoffs, and we can't overlook that human cost.
Yeah, it's a good point. It's easy to get caught up in the metaverse hype and all the potential, technological advancements. But at the end of the day, this is affecting real people.
Right. And for you listening out there, what's the key takeaway here? What should you be paying attention to amidst all of this meta news?
Yeah, good question.
I think the big takeaway is that we're witnessing a potential turning point for the entire tech industry.
Okay.
The choices that Meta makes today are likely going to ripple outward and influence, other companies, investors, and ultimately all of us who use technology every single day.
So Meta is kind of like a canary in the coal mine.
Yeah.
Their success or failure with the metaverse could really determine the direction technology takes.
It really could. And that brings me to another point. Meta's big bet on the metaverse, along with these layoffs, I think could trigger a broader shift in the tech landscape. It's possible that we'll see other companies follow suit, reallocating resources, doubling down on their own metaverse plays.
Right.
Or conversely, some might see this as an opportunity to capitalize on Meta's vulnerabilities in other areas like traditional social media.
Yeah, it's like a giant game of chess.
It is.
With all these companies, making these strategic moves, trying to anticipate what the other one's going to do, trying to position themselves for dominance.
That's a great analogy. But, while Meta might be leading the charge into the metaverse, it's not a guaranteed win.
Right.
There's still a lot of uncertainty about whether this technology will truly take off and become the transformative force that they envision.
Right. And that uncertainty just adds another layer of complexity.
It does.
But this whole situation.
It really does. And that's why it's so important to analyze not just what Meta is doing, but why they're doing it.
Right.
What are the underlying assumptions driving those decisions? What are the potential risks and rewards? And perhaps most importantly, what are the alternatives?
It's about, thinking critically, asking the tough questions, and not taking anything at face value.
Exactly.
Especially when it comes to a company as powerful and as influential as Meta.
Right. We need to be informed consumers of information, especially in the age of these tech giants and their ever-evolving strategies. But going back to Meta specifically, we see them cutting jobs in certain areas while aggressively hiring in others.
Right. Primarily machine learning.
Yeah. And it seems counterintuitive to be cutting costs.
You'd think they'd be cutting back everywhere.
While simultaneously investing in new talent.
Yeah. What's the logic there?
Well, I think it goes back to what Zuckerberg was saying about replacing those low performers with top talent.
Okay.
It seems that they're not just trying to trim the workforce. They're actually trying to reshape it.
Interesting. Okay.
They're essentially conducting a talent swap, bringing in individuals with those specialized skills that they see as being crucial.
In the areas they want to focus on.
Exactly. It's a bold move, but it does raise some interesting questions.
Yeah.
Will this actually result in a more innovative and agile workforce?
Yeah. Or will it backfire?
Or will it backfire? Exactly.
Interesting.
And it really speaks, I think, to the intense pressure that Meta is under to succeed with the metaverse. They're betting big, and they're clearly not afraid to make these drastic changes to achieve those goals.
It really does feel like they're going all in on this, and it makes you wonder, will this gamble pay off?
Will Meta's vision for the metaverse actually become a reality?
Yeah. Will it reshape the way we live and work and interact online?
Or will it be another cautionary tale of a tech giant overreaching, stumbling, and ultimately falling behind in that relentless race for innovation?
Those are the billion-dollar questions.
Yeah.
And the answers are going to have a profound impact on all of us. But while we wait to see how this all plays out, I think it's important to step back and consider the bigger picture.
What does Meta's all-in bet on the metaverse tell us about the state of the tech industry as a whole?
Yeah. Is this a sign of true innovation? a glimpse into the future of online interaction, or is it a symptom of a tech bubble?
Yeah, inflated by hype.
Inflated by hype and speculation.
And speculation that's destined to burst.
So these are the questions we need to be asking, not just about Meta, but about the entire tech landscape.
Because the choices that these companies make today are going to shake the world that we live in tomorrow.
It feels like we're at a crossroads, not just for Meta, but for the whole tech world. You know, if Meta's gamble on this metaverse pays off, it could change everything.
It really could.
How we work, how we play, even how we think about reality itself.
I know. It's crazy to think about.
It's a little mind-blowing.
It is.
And if it doesn't,
if it flops,
it could be a very expensive mistake.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
It makes you wonder, is this the right move? You know, this laser focus on one unproven technology.
Right.
What if you know somebody else swoops in with a better social media platform?
Yeah.
While Meta's busy building these virtual worlds.
That's the risk they're taking, right? It's high stakes.
Yeah, big time.
And only time will tell if they made the right call. But here's something else to think about. Even if the metaverse does become the next big thing, there's a lot of ethical and societal implications.
Oh, yeah, for sure. Like what kinds of things?
Well, think about data privacy in a fully immersive virtual world.
Okay.
I mean, companies could collect even more data about our behaviors and our preferences than they already do.
It's a little scary.
It is a little bit. And then there's the whole issue of digital ownership and control.
Right.
I mean, who's going to own the virtual assets we create?
Yeah.
The experiences that we have in the metaverse?
It's a good question.
It is. It's almost like a whole new Wild West is opening up.
Yeah.
And we need to figure out the rules of the game before things get out of hand.
We need to like establish some boundaries.
Exactly.
Before it's too late.
And that's why it's so important to have these conversations now.
Yeah.
While the metaverse is still in these early stages.
Right.
We need to be proactive.
Yeah.
Not reactive in shaping this technology so it benefits everyone.